my clock here. Want to introduce myself first and foremost. I'm Zach Morkin with Adams Insurance Advisors out in Ogallala, Nebraska. I serve as the president of the NExtgen group, which for the next few months, I'll relinquish that duty in October, but still have me, unfortunately, for a few more months. So what is NExtgen? NExtgen program within IIN engages and empowers insurance professionals age 45 and up.
Is it bad?
Our mission is to provide young agents with the resources they need to succeed and advance their careers in the insurance field. Being part of NExtgen helps you build valuable connections, evaluate your skills, and make a difference in your community and insurance industry. Little plug, if you want to get involved in NExtgen, you're new to the industry or you're not, but you fit the mold and want to get involved, please reach out to Jocelyn or myself. Continue to love have more people involved in our group in Nebraska. Before we dive in, definitely want to thank our sponsors, Platinum Industry Partners, who helped made today's webinar possible. Nothing's free and nothing's inexpensive anymore these days, so can't do these things without our sponsors. EMC Insurance, Farmers Mutual of Nebraska, IMT, North Star Mutual, and Markel. Two quick housekeeping items. First, you'll receive 2 poll questions during the presentation. Please participate in both to earn your CE credits. If you're looking to seek that out today, you do have to answer both of those during this session. Second, feel free to drop questions in the chat anytime, and we'll address them at the end. So without further ado, today we have Rick Pitts and Diane Smith. I have bios here, folks, but I'm going to let you introduce yourselves because you know yourselves better than me, and nobody wants to hear me read off those bios. So I don't know who wants to take it off first, but Rick and Diane, take it away. Thank you.
Zach, thank you. I'll run point here for a minute. It's good to see you again, sir. And I'm delighted that you're here. And I want to thank everybody here for being a part of our hour. We've got a very, very quick hour of stuff. In fact, we could probably take this topic and make it at least 2, perhaps 4, and maybe even more. It is an absolutely explosive topic overall. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and get going. I won't belabor introductions too much here. I still thank you guys so much for the chance to come visit at the spring meeting. What a fantastic program that was. I do stuff like that. I am also general counsel at Arlington Row, and I am joined today by Diane Smith, who is director of the Francis Rowe Center for Professional Growth. Arlington Rowe, if you don't know, is a managing general agent and wholesaler headquartered in Indianapolis. We have employees in, I believe the last count was 19 states, including in the great Nebraska state, and Iowa as well, Minnesota, Wisconsin, throughout. But we're headquartered in Indianapolis, and I will tell you that we have had a wonderful introduction to Nebraska over the last couple of years, and we're continuing to do that and being a part of what's going on in Nebraska. So again, thank you for the chance to be here today. I'll let Diane explain a little bit about the Francis Rowe Center for Professional Growth. I'll just say this: it's part of Arlington Rowe's commitment to the industry as a whole, and I think it's a really important thing. I have one more introduction to make here very quickly, and this is Miss Sadie, who is my office mate, and occasionally from time to time she likes to interrupt webinars, and so I'll do a preemptive apology for Sadie if she is an unruly office mate. I don't think she will be. We had some thunderstorms go through just a few minutes ago, and I don't think we're going to hear hide nor hear from Miss Sadie over the course of the hour. So with that, let's get going on all of this. Our introductory portion is called Skynet, or the Scrolls of Herculaneum, and I'll explain that in just a minute. I'll just say this. You might look at it at the moment and say, wait, I thought I was in an insurance class. Well, yeah, you are. You are. And there's an element of background, though, that's necessary to get there. But from there, what we'll do is we'll turn and take a look at, okay, let's get boots on the ground, if you will, and as practical as we possibly can here, and talk about some of the uses that we may see AI, artificial intelligence, put to in our agencies where it can benefit us, some stuff on how to get started, and again, some real practical stuff. I get the luxury of talking theory first, and Diane is going to be our boots on the ground with the AI in insurance agencies section. Our last two sections will go by quickly out of the necessity of time. As I mentioned earlier, this is an explosive topic, and how our companies are going to be navigating it is going to be changing extremely rapidly as more regulations develop. There are already challenges to it. You can see the sub point about class actions and punts. Talk a little bit about that. And then finally, just a couple words about your insureds who might be using AI, um, some of the issues that they might have. And I think we'll see some common themes kind of coming back around during our hour here together. Okay. So let's kick this whole thing off with this idea of Skynet or the Scrolls of Herculaneum. A little bit of background, a little bit of discussion about AI in general. What is it, and what do we think about it? And where I pick this out from is from the Terminator movies. And I know I'm speaking to next gen folks. And so when I talk about the Terminator movies, you might be a little bit, hey, wait a minute. I've heard about those. This is Arnold Schwarzenegger stuff. I got a smile from Sarah. Thank you very much for that. And this is a science fiction-y thing. Skynet becomes self-aware, and Skynet fight back, and it leads to the battle with the machines and all that, kind of, if you know the Terminator franchise in general. I probably could have used the movie trilogy, The Matrix, as well, and any other number of um, science fiction films over time. If I've got some folks who are a little bit more advanced, I could have used A Space Odyssey, 2001, the original, back when the computer HAL says, I can't do that, Dave, right? That the sort of the rise of the machines and all that kind of stuff. And it's pretty common in science fiction literature, especially, that the computers get smarter than we are, and they develop, a consciousness, if you will, and they become humanized. Again, Skynet fights back. And I put this in here for this reason, you guys. I think that a lot of this stuff from science fiction propels kind of our thinking about this, like, oh no, what is this? Oh no, how's it going to be used? Oh no, is this the end of humanity? Kind of carry it all the way out to its extreme. And it's influential, and it has some impact on the way that people think about AI, and it's it's a very natural reaction. You know what? We should just ban this stuff completely. Just no, just not a permitted at all. I don't know that that's realistic, but it's a common sort of response to have in connection with all that. Okay, so there's the Skynet side. Here's the other side of the equation: is the Scrolls of Herculaneum, and again, some of you may have seen this before or are familiar with this. Scrolls, ancient scrolls that cannot be unrolled or unraveled, are now being read in a sense through AI, because what they're doing is, through this laser scanning, they can find ink, not ink, ink, not ink, on a dot by dot basis. Okay. And then you have to decode or recompile all of that stuff to be able to create something that's meaningful to the folks who are specialists in the ancient world, and what they say is this: look, if we can read through the use of AI, just this mountain of data, then what we're likely to do is to unearth the most amazing set of discoveries possible about the ancient world. And here's another one. I don't have any slides on this, but I'll share this with you. I saw this the other day and I thought it was fascinating. Medical advances from AI, a properly trained AI. They said that, in finding instances with regard to disease and disease treatment, something that could have taken um, 10 years to do might happen in as little as 10 days now, was the quote that was going on. And what they meant was the compilation of, okay, what do we know about the patient? What do we know about the treatment? And can we assemble all of this information from on a national scale, right, to do some sort of studies? AI can speed that up to the point where, again, 10 years can become 10 days. And they think that the medical breakthroughs are going to be beyond belief in connection with all of that. So the point is, and enough on all of this for the moment, is this: there's a real balancing act that has to go on in connection with AI. Yeah, we've got the fears, Skynet, but also there is an incredible amount of what is widely recognized to be very, very good, societally good, from our artificial intelligence, that basically the AI stuff overall and together. And you know, I know that's kind of a heavy duty background on all of this, but it really does influence sort of this, if you will, kind of creeping approach to getting into AI. Should I? Is it the right thing to do? Kind of worried about it, all that kind of stuff. So, okay, what are we talking about here, really? And this actually is a little bit of a betrayal, if you will, of Skynet. We are not talking about giving machines self-awareness or a conscience, either one. Rather, it is mega computing, if you will, that can mimic, in many instances, um, events, actions, and tasks that used to have to be performed by humans. Okay, it's just computing on steroids, if you will, because of the ability of it to not only analyze mountains of data, but also learn to analyze them faster, and causing its significance to grow. Also, it is in part having computers learn how to program themselves, if you will, by extracting, if you will, things from data, and from experience and raw computational power, that might, again, look human, but really isn't human. And that's the bottom part that you see on the screen here: reasoning, problem solving, and the like. So essentially, what we're talking about here is mimicking human behavior just through the raw computational power that we're talking about. And you guys, it's actually been around for longer than we might care to admit. Okay. And I'm going to start here on the bottom row, if you will. There's some up above and some down below. Some of you may remember when the computer beat the reigning world chess champion in 1997, Garry Kasparov. Others of you may be a little bit on the younger side and may not remember anything like this until Watson wins in Jeopardy, which is 2011. But I think all of us are familiar with Roomba, and even that motorized, mechanized vacuum cleaner in our house um, learns the terrain and learns how to vacuum in the most efficient pattern. By the way, important for Nebraskans in particular is that same technology in Roomba now is making its way into drones that are flying over our farmers' fields. So, it's continuing all along. The most recent iteration that probably has hit popular conscience is ChatGPT, obviously here in 2022. The thing I think that's absolutely fascinating about this is to watch the degree to which it's become successful, as in being able to mimic and in some cases outperform humans in some of the most basic stuff that we do. And you can see the different things here: handwriting recognition, speech, image, reading comprehension, and language understanding, that those curves all move up very sharply, so that we have the ability to use um, the computing power of AI to again mimic human behavior, particularly with regard to speech recognition and the like. Um, and it has become amazing. I don't know if any of you have used dictation software, where you speak into a headset like this and it shows up on the screen. It took years for that to get good, but now it is extremely good. And the machine has for years. The machines have for years done a better job of speech recognition than humans have done, meaning transcription, right? And it's revolutionized transcription stuff overall. And of course, that's also happened in the world of images as well. And this is the um, advent or history, if you will, of image creation. Folks, out of those 9 images on the screen, precisely 0 of them are real. None of the 9 are real. And the last one in 2022, and you could actually even carry this beyond that, said, something absolutely whimsical here, like show a Pomeranian sitting on a king's throne. Well, there you go. And AI can generate the image and do it in a fairly sophisticated way. And by the way, this gets into one of the very first issues from a legal point of view, that is huge in connection with AI overall, which is, um, you know, uh, AI creating images that are blends of real and other people. This is a big deal in Nashville, Tennessee. Why Nashville, Tennessee? Copyright issues, creation of songs, misuse of facial images, all that kind of stuff. Intellectual property stuff has just sort of spiraled up in a spectacular way as being a huge and significant legal issue overall. Okay, get practical here, and I am going to turn things over to Diane here very shortly. Okay. I, the AI world sort of breaks down into public versus private AI, and probably your first interaction, even professionally or certainly on a personal level, is probably going to be Chat GPT or Gemini. They seem to be the leaders in the clubhouse with regard to that. Um, you know, Anybody can get access to them. There's parts of them that are free, others of them that you have to pay for, and all that kind of stuff. Hey, Chat GPT, how long does a COVID test stay good in my cabinet? Our question to Chat GPT the other day. Um, that's the easy part, the public part. The private stuff is the stuff that's likely going to be really important from a company perspective and ultimately from an agency perspective, in terms of being AI based, but being honed into very specific sets of tasks within the insurance industry. So you got public versus private AI being out there as an important part of or consideration for all this kind of stuff. Also, there's a distinction to be drawn between traditional and generative. Traditional and generative AI. Traditional is put your head down and do the work kind of stuff. take these inputs, do the analysis of them, create this output in a very confined and contained. Generative, on the other hand, is the stuff that is much more um, free flowing, if you will, interpretation of images, as you see here on the slide, and that kind of stuff. One is not exclusive of the other. You can have generative AI in a public AI setting, so it's not, an either or proposition. But these are essentially the two key things that I think that are crucial in connection with understanding what we're going to be looking at. You might use AI and go out to, as we'll see in a minute, to do something within your agency. And I think that, it's a public use of what is probably generative AI. And that's not going to create perhaps as many problems as if you have something that is private, that you have paid for, that is specific to an agency that's got proprietary information in it, or that the companies are using, let's say for underwriting, fraud detection, and things of that nature. So it kind of depends on which end of the spectrum that you're on in terms of what degree of concern that you've got about AI overall. Okay. But there's no doubt it's all here. It's all here right now. And it's all being done here right now. I had to change some flight tickets the other day, and received a "we'll call you," and the phone call that I got was a virtual assistant, second bullet point, right hand side, virtual assistant by speech recognition. I knew it was AI. It was so convincing that at the end of our conversation, I said, "No, there isn't anything else I need. Thank you." I thanked a machine. Because it was that effective in terms of solving the flight problem that I was having. The point is, it's here and it's now. So with that, I am going to pass the microphone over to Diane Smith. And Diane's going to talk about, all right, with all this background, where do we take this thing inside the agency ourselves?
Thank you, Rick, and thank you. It's good to see everyone again. I believe it's been about a year since we did our last webinar with all of you. As Rick mentioned, I'm the director of the Francis Rose Center here at Arlington Row. We started a school, if you will, in COVID times. It seems like yesterday, but it's been a while. We did a lot of internal departmental overviews and getting everyone up to speed. And then we decided we're going to take things more agency facing. There is such a need and so many topics, just a plethora of topics. And so this AI topic that Rick has generated is really of the moment. And again, I appreciate you allowing us to come on and talk with you today. Just a little background. I've been in the business 40 plus years. I started my career as an agent. And before I got anywhere near corporate America, I know what it's like to sell and deal with the public. So I just want to give myself that little prop for all of you that I've walked a mile in your shoes if you are an agent. And I want to talk today about the practical uses of AI. So can we get to our yikes slide, Rick?
Yes.
Okay.
And by the way, just a quick side note as we're getting there, if you see anything here that you would like, please let us know. We'll be happy to share slides and information with you. However, we can do that. Okay. There we go.
So yikes, right? Rick gave us a lot of information. He did talk about the practical side of things, and that's what I want to talk to you all as agents today and where you might get started, because all of this can be very scary. I know I'm old school, guys, I admit it, but I also have been very involved with technology throughout my career. So I went through Y2K. Rick knows that. I assisted agents getting off of their yellow legal pads. onto computer systems in the early 2000s. I built the first website. I had a team, obviously, that helped, but here at Arlington Row, and been very involved in technology. I think sometimes that's forgotten. And I had somebody in IT recently ask me if I knew Excel. Yeah. So anyway, I digress, but I want to say it's scary, right? No matter what generation, because everyone is talking about AI and these things keep popping up in the news, like Rick showed the scrolls. When you think of how unique and overwhelming that is, that it's going to be able to read those scrolls, it can be, again, kind of, just off the wall. The other thing I think as an agent, I'm kind of worried I'm going to make a mistake. I don't want to look silly in front of my insureds. I've gained their trust, right? It's a relationship business, and I want to look like I know what I'm doing. And I think the biggest fear right now, and it's, rumbling out there, is that it's very technical, it's very complex, and it's going to replace human connection or job roles. But let's get into some practical applications as an agent that you could be able to use. So Rick, next slide, KISS. So guys, have you ever seen this? I told Jaslyn, I think I paid $5.99 for it. I don't know where I bought it, but I keep it on my desk. Keep it simple. This one is stupid. You can always replace that. In this instance, we're going to say keep it simple and straightforward. Okay. So again, the overwhelmingness, the complexity of it. Let's look at AI. It's just really a helper. It's not a replacer for what we do. It doesn't sell insurance.
Hey, Corey.
You do that. Hello? Think of it like a calculator, and you're still the one in charge. It can analyze customer interactions. It can recommend best times to call, a preferred communication style, or product recommendations. So KISS, again, not smooch, but keep it simple and straightforward. Let's go into the best time to call. So guys, today I want to get into what I utilized for the practicality. I use ChatGPT quite often. I think it's probably the most popular. And I was thinking about when I was an agent and I would call insureds. Let's tackle this. Like, what is the best time to call a client? And what is their preferred communication style? So I put this into ChatGPT and it spit out a lot of these recommendations. You can see I put your state up here, Nebraska. So looking at this, back in the day, I had to create my own roadmap when I was an agent. And all of you I know are doing all of that. But this would be a suggestion how to harness the power of AI, a quick guide, if you will, with the simplicity. So let's look at some tips here to reaffirm what you're doing. Next slide. Start small. Make it easy. You don't need to learn everything at once. Maybe just take one tool or one suggestion and look to implement that. Let the chat bot or the chat GPT answer some common client questions for you, and then follow up with an email. I oftentimes will draft an email. I have a degree in communication, so I like to think I know what I'm doing, Rick, after so many years. But once in a while, I'll look at it and I think, maybe it just needs to be polished. Or perhaps maybe it's a little too high level, right? And maybe I just need to, I hate to say dumb it down, but let's make it a little more, elementary here. And again, the KISS method. So I will throw that into ChatGPT often. Let it write something for you. Let it compel you to personalize your emails and such outreach type messages. So let's go to the next slide, because here was a sample note that I asked for. Is your coverage still working for you? And you can see here that I gave ChatGPT my thoughts, but it came up with a nice little note here. Not that all of you couldn't do that on your own. Again, the robot is helping you, but it may help you work smarter, not harder, and give you what you need. Oftentimes I will copy this and then put more of my own words back into whatever it provides. I don't believe I'm addicted to ChatGPT by any means. And if you use like their test system, it's going to cut you off at a certain point. Guys, I've tried it, right? It's like, no more, you've reached your quota until after 2 p.m. So just know it's kind of one of those fun things to dip your toe in the water and let it assist you. All right. Again, use AI to save time, not added work. You know, let it do some busy work for you. You're all busy. You're out looking at working with agents and looking, or excuse me, working with insureds and looking to meet with insureds. Sometimes you may want to summarize some customer information very quickly. Let's go into, Rick, I want to go into the next slide because it's a people business and we know that. And oftentimes insureds won't understand insurance in general, right? If you're selling auto and home, I get it all day long. I did it. Small business in my community. I understand that. BOPs, some commercial lines. But I had cross-sold a book of business with umbrella policies. And this has been, quite a while ago. It was a second generation agency here in the Indianapolis area. And what I noticed when I went into the agency was the book had not been re-underwritten in years. Guys, I'm going to date myself. There were $50 deductibles on the homeowners policies. There were liability limits at $50,000, right? So it's just like, oh, this book needs to be reworked. And Rick probably knows the agency I work for. It was very affluent, in an affluent area, Meridian Hills Country Club area here in Indianapolis, second generation. Again, the book had not been worked. So I remember thinking, I'm going to do a cross-sell campaign to sell umbrellas because these people are affluent. They have a lot to lose. And I'm going to talk about upselling some of these coverage and why it's needed. So in this case, I went out to ChatGPT and I said, hey, tell me about an umbrella policy and who should consider it, why, what are the costs, and maybe give me a few examples as far as some story selling that I can give to the customer, because every customer likes to know, right? I love the story selling, claims examples, things that have actually happened so that they can consider this type of coverage and why. All right. Rick, next slide. Remember, you stay in control. AI gives you suggestions, you make the decisions. Nothing is done automatically without your say. That's the scary part over. You're still the expert, you're still the advisor. And what do we say in our business? The trusted advisor. I have that nice little international no sign over Mr. Robot there. Even that woman that Rick has mentioned, she's the dot over there on my shelf on the credenza. I don't want to say her name, right? It'll trigger her. But even she shuts up when I tell her to stop. So just know you're still in control, right? You still can tell Robot, no, I'm going to do it this way. Okay, some suggestions for all of you. And again, Rick and I can share these slides because I think this is a good place for people to start when they're looking at insurance agent tasks, right? What makes me well-rounded? What makes me retain clients? What helps me attract prospective clients? These are some things that I would say, take a look at and pick one. Just start it. A little bit of call to action if you've never utilized it before. Possibly upcoming renewal reminders, maintenance tips on homes, autos. Where do you begin? Again, just pick one. The technology is there. Next slide. We've heard about bundling. Our insureds hear that every night on the news or on the TV with commercials. So they're going to understand a little bit about bundling. Maybe you have an insured that's had a new baby or they moved into a new home. Or I always love the friendly reminders for, again, that relationship piece of the business, that happy birthday, that anniversary. If you have a referral program within the agency, maybe a thank you for a referral, and obviously claims follow-up. Let AI help you with those touch points, those recognition points. Perhaps your agency management systems like an Applied and AMS, they have things that kick out, but I think you can progress beyond that. I think you could go into the use of AI. And remember, it's okay to ask questions. If something's confusing, you're not alone. A lot of seasoned agents in the business, they're kind of afraid of AI. There's no shame in saying, hey, I don't get this, but I want to try it out. Just be curious. Maybe, ask for some simple things and don't aim for perfect. Just get in there and explore a little bit and have fun. Remember, kiss, not smooch, but keep it simple and straightforward. So what I liked about this, guys, again, chat GPT came through with me. It took what I had asked and put it into a simple flyer. So I don't know if you've ever tried this or not, but it's kind of cool. Just a nice little simple flyer. So you can personalize it, make it your own, just dip your toe in the water. Rick, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Diane. I appreciate that, and I appreciate so much some of the ways that the ways that you're sharing here, so much how this can assist us on down the road. Folks, I've also heard this. People are employing AI to do analysis of books of business. We used to think it was very sophisticated if you could look at a book of business and say, hey, our rate of retention or fade rate, whatever you want to call it, our rate of retention on homeowners is 92%, commercial lines it's 85. Well, now with AI, you're getting this. If we have both home and auto, our retention rate is X. If we only have one or the other, it's Y. And you're getting more granular breakdown on what's going on with regard to your book of business, because it's out there and available for AI, which that also impacts, by the way, pricing with regard to agency, due diligence with regard to agency, merger and acquisition work, and the like. And again, there are any number of products that are coming out that will be in the, again, public arena that are going to be trying to come to your front door to do this. And I love the idea with all of that stuff that's going to be flowing to us over the course of time. KISS is a wonderful concept. And also, don't wait to dip your toe. Even, you know what, even if you don't use it, just give it a try and give it a shout. Well, let me turn, if I can, a little bit here in our remaining time to talk about some of the other things that are going to be happening out there in connection with AI, are already happening in connection with AI, by looking at it sort of from the perspective of what are our companies up to. It's one thing, for use within the agency, but within our companies, my goodness, what's going on? Well, a lot of different things are happening. First and foremost is I think fraud detection, just basically dumping a scenario claim situation into AI and having it spit out whether or not there's a possibility of any sort of fraud, or claims analysis in general, I guess, would be a subcomponent of all of that. And that's one of those sorts of things I think we're going to see more of. Ultimately, we still want it reviewed by humans, but if you're working through thousands upon thousands of claims, AI is becoming an important asset within our companies overall. We've already talked about automating customer inquiry and customer development, right? Customer communication, I want to say that clients are going to grow to expect that, and they are going to want to have quick and immediate access. I think the days, I'm going to put it to you this way. I think the days of you are 313th in line to have your call answered, I think they're behind us, particularly for larger organizations. I know many of you may insure folks who are much more likely to call you because there is no line, right? And there's always going to be a place for those folks in this world, but there's a new generation, no pun intended here at NextGen, that is going to grow up, if you will, accustomed to all of this, and frankly, grow to expect it and see it as good customer service, if not presently, probably very shortly into the future. Overall, AI is going to be used to develop underwriting standards. It is also going to be used to develop new products. again, if we can do anything with, that mountain of data inside our agency, think about what a company could do with, 100-fold or 1,000-fold that amount of money. They can now develop particularly some micro coverages that you see here and continue to fuel the development of usage-based insurance, which goes hand in hand with Uber, Lyft, Airbnb, Vrbo, the sharing economy and the new insurance products that are going to be needed there. That's going to be powered from an underwriting and from a forms perspective by their use of AI. And I should be a little bit clear about this as well. Likely it's going to be their use of private AI that is more traditional in nature. Remember, we were talking about those things, which is they are going to make the investment for AI that is specific to their company and specific to their need. And many companies are already doing this to the tunes of millions of dollars of input and development in connection with all of that. In fact, some of the folks that we've been talking about here are being told from the folks in the AI world, if you're just starting now, you're already starting late. Is kind of the approach here with regard to this, and here's kind of the overall approach we're talking about. And again, this has got some date connected to it, but I leave it in because it's still a really good idea, and also it's a pretty good idea inside your agency. Okay. As Diane suggested, and this is the power of this, dip your toe here. Keep it simple, keep it straightforward, but dip your toe into this, because the sooner that you start to see how AI can be used within your organization, the sooner that you can go on to steps 2, 3, and 4, which the lawyer in me loves, which is, all right, how are we going to use it? We, your agency, we, or the company, we. How are we going to use it? How are we going to protect the data that's inside of it, or it is being used in its system? And how do we get the right folks taking care of all of this and taking care of this through appropriate infrastructure, physical investment in all of this? I mean, if you're going to fully deploy AI, you've kind of got to get in there. And the first step is to dip your toe into it. And companies have already started doing that. You may already be encountering it from your companies, that they are spending a lot of money to try to get ready for the AI revolution. And I know, by the way, I know that some of this starts to sound of necessity a bit theoretical here overall. It is. Okay. It is, because we're just now starting to figure out the degree to which there is going to be regulation, number one, and number two, what that regulation is going to look like. The problem that you have with regard to regulating in the world of AI is essentially this. AI is growing at such an incredible rate that any sort of thou shalt do this, thou shalt not do that, kind of basic black and white rules, it's out of date by the time they're written. Instead, what we have to have happen, and what is happening in connection with regulation, is that there are, of course, piecemeal chunks of legislation, both in Congress and in the states. It's what the slide's all about. But also, these pieces of legislation are all more very much at a conceptual level, okay? Which is you need to do these sorts of things and don't do those sorts of things and the like. And it's still in kind of this developmental stage. And again, partially it's because of speed, the speed of development. Some of the new stuff that is coming out started with the EU. We've seen that in data protection and privacy. Same kind of thing going on here. And what they do is they say, okay, look, if you're in a high risk industry, we're going to regulate you more closely and tighter in connection with this. And in fact, Colorado, your neighbors, guys, was the first state to do this. And they said same thing, same idea. Hey, we want people to use reasonable care in connection with AI and algorithmic discrimination and that kind of stuff. And hey, insurance is an industry that is at high risk for possible abuse or discrimination or misuse of AI, and so therefore, we're going to regulate it at the highest level. And this is just kind of an example of where we're going in connection with all this. This is a look at sort of the basic stuff. By the way, notice the source on this is our friends at Swiss Re, major player in the errors and emissions marketplace as well. So, I mean, the idea here is principle-based, concept-based guidance in general. You know, we want still to have humans at the forefront. I won't go through these line by line. But we want to have things like managed AI and also explainable AI, point number 4, and also making investments in upskilling the existing workforce here overall. Let me go back if I can to this concept idea, and this is kind of the words that go behind the slide, the picture on the slide that we were talking about here. You know, compliance and stuff like this. This is what you see going on right now. And in fact, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners is doing some very similar sorts of things here to say that that all this is important goals to try to be achieved. This is a long wind-up, short pitch. I want to stop here and talk for just a second about point number 4. Okay, point number 4. And I'm going to get as practical as I possibly can because I think that you guys have dealt with this, and this one may be coming back around. Internal and external transparency. Okay. Explain how AI worked, how it came up with this particular result. When I say we've dealt with this before, where I think we really have dealt with this before is in the arena of credit scoring or insurance scoring, whatever you want to call it, right? And I'm going to be unfair to our industry here for a minute. Please hold the cards and letters, but I'm going to be unfair for a minute. When credit scoring first came out, there was this belief that it was a myth, right? That it didn't work. And as one person says, you know, I'm glad that those hailstones only hit the people with bad credit ratings. You know, we just didn't really believe that credit scoring could be an underwriting tool for property and casualty. That was step number 1. Step number 2 was our industry sort of said, well, listen, we don't really know how it works, so we can't tell you how it works. That changed into, this is step number 2, changed into, we do know how it works, but we don't want to tell you how it works because that's proprietary, that's confidential, that's our own information, and we don't want to tell you how it works, which still persists inside the industry to this day. And we don't have to tell you, commissioner, regulator, whatever the case may be. All right. So there was a we don't know became we do know, but we don't want to tell you, which is anti-transparency. And there's still transparency laws that are out there. And I imagine that the same thing is going to happen in connection with AI. Why do we care about this? Well, I suspect there are a lot of folks on this webinar today who've had someone who says, why did my insurance go up? I didn't have an accident. I didn't change cars. You know, what's going on here? And the short answer is, well, your credit score got worse. Well, why does that matter? right? And I suspect we have all battled on that issue or some variation on that issue at some point along the line. And it's really tough when the industry is saying, we don't want to let you know about this. We don't want to give you that particular information. And I think that we're likely to see the same thing happening in connection with AI. Again, well, AI told us to do that. Well, how did AI decide that? Well, I don't have to tell you because it's confidential. Okay. And I think that that's one of the problems that you want to keep an eye out for overall as you see the development of AI within your companies. Okay. And that's really important to know that, because if you are forewarned, you are forearmed to be able to say, hey, we've been here before, and start to work through this with your customers and the like. Okay. This is going to be, I think, one of the biggest developments in connection with AI usage and AI regulation overall over the course of time. I'm going to move forward here to this and talk. I mentioned earlier the
I haven't seen it yet.
class actions that are out there. Just a couple of them. One is discrimination in underwriting, and the other is no human being was ever reviewing the claims. I think that we can justly worry about the prospect of misuse in connection with all of this. That's not to comment on these lawsuits. It's to say they're already out there, and there are likely to be more of them over the course of time. One last point here, folks, and then let's, if we can, take a look at any questions that you guys have, just in case you have an insured who heads into this issue, okay, into using substantially AI in connection with their business. This is your insured, okay? Couple different things. You want to keep an eye out for, and this is just sort of a checklist with regard to this, okay? Data ownership, intellectual IP, intellectual property, and the like. There are new insurance products that are already being developed that will cover AI related exposures, particularly liability exposures. This may be some of the laundry list that your insureds will want to keep an eye on over the course of time. And I'll conclude with this. The biggest one, actually, let me take us to our very last slide here, if we can. And here's the core point for your insureds to understand. They cannot pick up a problem and dump it over in AI and say, I don't have any responsibility for what went on. Okay. We had AI go through the resumes. We didn't do any discriminatory thing. AI just automatically decided to go ahead and reject applicants based on their age. Well, the EEOC's position, and by the way, I think this would be their position, period, bar none, is this. No, look, you made the decision. Whether you offloaded it to AI or not is a different question. You still made the decision to reject those applicants, even if you let the AI software do it without you being involved in it. In other words, there is going to be a huge element in connection with AI of this. Hey, user. As the user, you are the captain of the ship. You are responsible, whether you intend to be or not. You are responsible for what the ship does, period. Okay? Doesn't require fault, doesn't require bad motives. You're responsible because you're the captain of the ship. And your choice to use AI will not, I think, at the end of the day, absolve you of any sort of liability. Instead, I think it may create the prospect of even more. So again, just a few words there on where our companies are are going to be going with regard to all of this. And with that, I will stop. Zach, I see you there. Perhaps you could jump in here and speak to any questions that we might have.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions? I look at the chat. It doesn't look like there's any. Kind of just had comments, no questions for Rick or Diane, unless you have anything. You can either throw it in the chat real quick or just unmute yourself and speak up.
By the way, if I can, I want to mention something else just very, very quickly. You might think you're being kind of harsh on AI, talking about it in a good way, and now being really harsh on it. Lawyers are being told don't use AI to write your briefs because there were instances in which AI made up cases. Okay. And there is a thing out there known as AI hallucination. Also, there's concern about garbage in, garbage out, which is if you ask AI, well, can't younger people do work better and faster than older people? All right. There's a bias that's built into that question, and I'm trying to be silly to be short here. There's a bias that's built into that question that AI is not a human being. It won't recognize it. It will answer the question that it perceives that you've asked, and your inherent bias still exists in all of it. So that's part of the reason why we say at the end of the day, the user is still going to be the captain of the ship. So, Zach.
Yeah, thank you. Looks like Michael just asked a question about getting any software programs for independent agents to get quotes from multiple companies quickly rather than doing it company by company. Yeah, there are a number of raters. I don't know if you're speaking specifically for personal lines or commercial lines, but I would just Google commercial lines, insurance raters, or personal lines raters. There's a number of them out there. I don't think we'll promote any out here today, but there's definitely options out there for you to do that.
Yes, and also companies that are doing policy comparison, policy analysis on the coverage side as well. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. That is becoming a very rapidly populated environment.
Yep. Well, if nothing else, thank you, Rick and Diane. Appreciate your time. Really good, relevant topic, I think. Hopefully everybody took something away from it. One quick reminder, we do have a free CE webinar tomorrow, June 27th at 9 a.m. Central. It's through Big Eye's ABIN platform. It's 2 more hours of free CE if you need them. I'm told it's not too late to register, so look out for that. Go to the IIAM website. I know it'll be up there if you want to do that. So if you happen to not get your 2 poll questions answered, I like to do this to Jocelyn. She does take bribes. So she's getting married here soon, within a couple weeks maybe. Yep. So she does take bribes. If you didn't get your poll questions done, get a hold of Jocelyn. I won't promise anything, I guess. But appreciate everybody's time. Hope you have a great rest of the week and good weekend.
Thanks to you all. Thanks to Jocelyn. You all be well. Thank you again. Take care. Bye-bye.
See ya.